All right, folks, we got some stories to bring to you today regarding the Switch 2 and even future movies coming from Nintendo. Because, yeah, we had that story about how Nintendo said they're working on other movies. They're just keeping it under wraps right now. Only Mario and Zelda are announced. But one movie has now, well, it's been confirmed through a means that it's fairly reliable. But more than that, we have some brand new updates on Donkey Kong Bananza, including the game's performance and the developers actually talking about the game's performance. And we're talking about the frame rates and how some of it's intentional, some of it is unfortunate, but they focused on a very specific thing, which is why they hope people aren't really going to be too bothered by it. We also have an update on one of Nintendo's partner companies who seem to be coming to the close of a development on a game. We don't know what the game is, although I have a pretty good guess. There's what you guys want it to be, and then there's what it probably is. That's the way I'm kind of looking at this. More than that, we have a small update on the supposed rumored direct, according to beat 'em ups for this month, and just some more. There's a few stories in here. So look, guys, before I dive in, I want to remind you we are giving away 5 copies of Donkey Kong Bananza. All you have to do is go on to the link in the pinned comment or the description. I wish everybody luck, and yes, just to reiterate, it's a worldwide giveaway, but if you live in the United States, you have an optional to get a physical copy. If you're outside the United States, I'm just sending out digital codes. It's just for logistical reasons. Now, let's go ahead and dive into this first story, and this deals with Camelot Software. Camelot Software planning showing signs of late-stage development work. So it says, technologies their employees are currently researching indicate that regional and localization tasks are being worked, and additional to automated UI testing and UI annotation. Another fun fact, Camelot Software Planning released 6 sports titles between Golden Sun, The Lost Age, and they released another 6 sports titles after Golden Sun, Dark Dawn. They follow that same release cadence, my friends. We're in for another Golden Sun on Switch 2. Now, just to make sure that this story checked out, of course, we had to go to the link, which just has where they got the screenshot and all this stuff from. So absolutely, the story does seem to check out. We'll link to this down below, that they are in late stages on something. Now, for the hopes on Golden Sun, I totally understand. Obviously, if they keep that release pattern, Golden Sun could be next. They did also do an interview recently where they did mention that RPGs and the sports games are kind of like their bread and butter, and they're very thankful and all of that. We'll put a screenshot up on the screen for that as well. So you guys can see that they clearly have not given up on making RPGs or, Golden Sun games, I suppose. It has been 15 years. Now, my best bet is that this probably is going to be a Mario Tennis game. And I know that breaks the pattern, but the other pattern is early in a system's life cycle, they release Mario Tennis. That's just completely normal. They've done it on, I don't know, 20 years now on new generation systems, whether it was handheld or home console, and it would fall in line with Mario Tennis Aces, came out in 2018. I would suspect this one's probably going to be coming out in 2026, probably during the summer. So yeah, that's what I think it's going to be. But again, there is the 6-game gap for the last 2 Golden Sun games. So I'm not going to take away all of your hope for Golden Sun, but I will say that that's not what I'm expecting. I don't know what's going on. I am happy to hear that they're not done with making RPG kind of games, but will it be Golden Sun or is it going to be Mario Tennis? Those are basically the 2 games. I know a lot of you want it to be Golden Sun. Some of you maybe want it to be Mario Tennis, whichever one you guys end up preferring. I will say, for all the flack that Mario Tennis Aces got, it was a much better game than Ultra Smash on Wii U, so they definitely are heading in the right direction with Mario Tennis Aces, so we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have a new rumor that has additional backing since I actually saw this report the other day from Square Enix about a remake, remaster, something going on with Dragon Quest VII. So this is the original source here. The MP First website says, report, Square Enix developing Dragon Quest VII remake planned for release in 2026. So following the success of the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake, Square Enix looks to release another entry in the franchise. MP First has learned that Square Enix is currently developing a remake of Dragon Quest VII, Fragments of the Forgotten Past, the beloved 2000 classic originally released for the first PlayStation. This information comes from internal documents we've seen that outline several upcoming projects tied to the publisher's top franchises, all scheduled for this fiscal year or next year. The keyword here is remake, and that's exactly how it's labeled internally. This distinction is crucial, as Square Enix has previously referred to other updated Dragon Quest titles, such as Dragon Quest 3, 4, and the upcoming 1 and 2, as HD remakes. This explicit use of the term remake strongly suggests a more ambitious reimagining of Dragon Quest VII than a simple graphical upgrade. So, while the full scale of the remake remains unknown at this point, the fact that the company itself refers to it as a remake and not a remaster speaks volumes. Square Enix typically reserves that terminology for projects involving significant changes, whether in visuals, gameplay, or structure, rather than one-to-one ports with visual polish. Fans will recall that Dragon Quest VII was later re-released on the Nintendo 3DS with updated visuals and various improvements and was generally well received. However, the version in development appears to go well beyond that effort. At least that's what they're figuring. Now, we have to remember here that we need additional backing because this is a website that we've never really reported on before, and we got that backing from Jason Schreier. Jason Schreier implies that Dragon Quest VII Remake is real, just in a smaller scope. So I think it's safe to say that Square wants to make as many Dragon Quest games as possible for modern platforms. Doesn't mean all or any of them are going to be big, ambitious revamps, like obviously Final Fantasy VII Remake. Why, Jason? I want this so bad. This was the Dragon Quest game that actually clicked for me. I didn't say there's no remake. And this all happened over on Reset Era. As you'll see when we click on this link here, it's going to load up Reset Era where Jason Schreier, aka the Press Sneak F, is over there posting. So look, guys, obviously with Jason Schreier backing this, what he's kind of saying is, yes, it is a remake, but don't expect it to be this grand, ambitious Final Fantasy VII style thing like the original rumor, presented with their speculation. It's more likely to be probably more ambitious than like the HD remakes, because like those were, this was like a 3D style Dragon Quest game, kind of. So I do feel like it's going to be a bit more ambitious than the other ones, but it's not going to be like a Final Fantasy VII sort of thing. Either way, I think fans are probably going to be pretty happy about that. So that's what I like to see. Now, we have to talk about something that lit the internet ablaze. First, let's go to the actual report here that showed up on Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit. This is about the Nintendo Direct that's supposedly happening this month, right here. And it says, at the end of yesterday's Nintendo podcast, Beat 'em Ups implies a Nintendo Direct is coming next week. And this blew up and ended up getting posted by YouTubers, fellow websites, and all that stuff. In fact, here's the clip from the end of that podcast.
I love you personally, and I'll see you next week for another banger episode where we can break down the Direct. Bye.
Now, you might go, well, that seems pretty definitive that there's going to be a Direct. Now, I've actually known about this for days, and because the same day the podcast ended, we actually were live streaming, and I looked into it. And look, I could sit here and tell you that I knew this was not a story and that he wasn't saying a Direct is going to happen next week, but I'll let him talk for himself. So, Woodhawker says, I did not say this, and I don't know nothing about no Direct next week. Now, to be fair, he did say it literally, but it wasn't meant to be taken literally, as he goes on to clarify. I do my podcast live, and the chat this week wouldn't stop asking about when the July Direct was. I literally said, I don't know, repeatedly in response. Right before I ended the show, I joked, see you next week, and we could talk about the Direct. Sorry for the confusion. That wasn't the exact terminology, but pretty similar. I know nothing, but personally, I wouldn't think they do a Direct before Donkey Kong releases. Now, if you actually go and watch his podcast, it's not that long of a show, like especially compared to our show, it's not very long. One of the big things that you'll learn throughout the show is, one, he covered a rumor from Nashweedle, obviously talking about there possibly being one last week or the last week of the month. So there's that, just for like actual context out there. But more than that, he also repeatedly said that he does believe in his source. He does still think that Direct is happening this month. So he's doubling down on that aspect, but he clarified many times he has no idea what week it is. And he just obviously clarified again, he doesn't think it would be this upcoming week here with Donkey Kong Bananza coming out. Doesn't mean it can't be, but he just doesn't really know. He just, from his source that he believes and trusts, it's going to be happening in July. So take that for what you will. That leaves obviously a couple other weeks. 1 week we already have a Pokemon Presents, but doesn't mean they can't do a Direct the same week. They've doubled up events before. Also, there's still the last week of the month, which conveniently enough, the 31st lands on a Thursday, so it's still July. So you could even go all the way to the very last day of the month. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But hey, for now, look, is there going to be a Direct this month? Beat 'em Ups is standing on his guard. There will be. When it's going to be, nobody really seems to know. Now, this is a story we have a lot of confirmation on, and we talked about how Donkey Kong Bananza would be leaking fairly soon. And look, it already happened. DK Bananza just got a copy. I can see the picture of the cartridge and all that. So, okay, cool. But does this mean there's actually leaks happening online? And the answer is Yes, there's an entire thread about it over on Family Boards. Don't worry, we're not going to show anything. But Donkey Kong Bananza spoiler thread, open spoilers, update, streamer playing through game spoilers out now. I went through the thread. Turns out it was like someone over on 4chan. There was a legitimate link. Someone was actually streaming the game. So yes, leaks are out there. Leaks are crazy. We are not going to be covering any of the new information discerned from these leaks, at least not in these live streams or live events or these shows. I firmly believe that while I might have, just by looking into the story, already seen some spoilers, I do believe that once things leak out here unintended from Nintendo in this manner where the full game is being live streamed, that's when we got to stop kind of covering leaks and stuff about games. I'm all about rumors and leaks, but only when it's not the entire thing. And when the entire game gets leaked out there, now you're just spoiling the whole game. Like if it was just like a map leak that happened like 3 weeks ago on Nintendo's website or something, cool, we could talk about that. Or if it was, a little minor story plot point that leaked 2 months ago, yeah, we could talk about that. But once the full game's out there, we're not trying to sit here and spoil the whole thing. And I just want to warn you guys, in case this stuff starts leaving 4chan and appearing elsewhere, as I said, it's already over on Family Boards. Or if you're trying to find all the spoilers, go to that thread on Family Boards. So there you go. For those that just don't give a crap about spoilers. Now, the director of the game wanted to address something, which is really interesting because Nintendo never addresses how a game performs or resolution or any of that stuff. They generally just talk about the gameplay and how fun it is. This is quite interesting because he decided to address something he knows people are noticing with the demo. So Donkey Kong Bananza director acknowledges performance drops. We prioritized fun and playability. So here's what he went to say. There are several factors to consider. First, we intentionally used effects like hit stop and slow motion to emphasize impacts. And I pointed that out. Some people were telling me about, oh, there's all these frame rate drops, but every time they were talking about it, I'm sitting there watching the video and there literally is a stop motion and stuff like that. So, I wasn't so sure, and I haven't gone hands-on with the game yet, but just from watching gameplay, I was like, oh, well, that looks intentional. And he confirms to that there is intentional to emphasize impacts. Second, because we use voxel technology, that's the destruction technology, there are times when there are major changes and destruction in the environment. We're aware that performance may drop slightly at these times. However, as you say, overall the game is smooth, and at points where large-scale changes occur, we prioritize fun and playability. So basically, hey, yeah, they could have prioritized like a 100% smooth frame rate, but they felt that the dip in the frame rate was so slight that they'd rather not like tone down the effects and make it feel less fun. They wanted to keep the effects and have the game just feel more impactful and more fun. I can appreciate this approach to game design and game development and all that. Obviously, I haven't played the game for myself, so I can't judge whether that was the right choice for me. And all of us are gonna have to judge individually. Honestly, it's targeting 60 FPS. Like that's what this game runs at. So it dropping down to like 55, even 50 frames, not a big deal to me. As long as it's like consistently above 30, I'm usually pretty happy, unless it really dips. If it goes from 60 to 30, that's a huge drop, and you notice that in gameplay. But for the most part, if they keep it above 30, and it's obviously mostly at 60, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, this last thing we have here, I find to be really interesting because it keeps unloading for me. And it keeps unloading for me because it's a government website that deals with public records for copyright. And through this, we actually learned that we know what the next movie Nintendo's making. It's Donkey Kong. No surprise, it's Donkey Kong, DK Bananza, DK Theme Parks, DK Movie. So the copyright public record system, and you can see it was filed here back in June, obviously recently published. And yeah, you see the date of execution as well is in like May of 27 or whatever. I'm not really going to worry about the date of execution, but you see Party was Nintendo Studios LLC. Party 2 is Universal Pictures, so it's going to be animated, no surprise. Obviously, we have Seth Rogen as the voice actor for Donkey Kong. Short form license, and it says Untitled Donkey Kong Project, a motion picture, and then you can see the Universal and Nintendo link there. So yeah, we're getting a Donkey Kong movie. This isn't really surprising, so I'm guessing whatever happens at the end of the new Mario movie next year will probably lead into that Donkey Kong movie before that Donkey Kong movie might lead into another Mario movie, and it's a whole universe of stuff going on. So yeah, Nintendo did say they were working on other movies, and now we know what one of them is. We don't know much more than that, so we'll have to wait and see, but that's pretty exciting, and I expect that to be announced maybe in 2027. I don't think they'll announce it next year, but I think in 2027, once we get past the Zelda movie, they'll announce the Donkey Kong movie. Maybe it's going to be a 2028. We don't really know. Obviously, what the release schedule is, that's total speculation. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rumpleljans from Nintendo Prime. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you had an amazing weekend. We are on Sunday, so we're starting a new week, but it ain't Monday yet, so we don't got to dread things quite yet. Like Metroid Dread. What a great game. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next video.